I think that the risks that truly affect investments are not in Nigeria. I think what you have in Nigeria is challenges in terms of building a business. But if the ultimate aim in business is to make a good return, Nigeria offers a much better return than most economies do. There may be challenges in you having to build a bit of your infrastructure, challenges in getting your licensing, challenges, soft challenges in terms of getting the business started. But once you're up and running, you're a success. And if you look at it from the point of view of large corporates, let's take the telecoms industry, where we had in 2002 a very transparent GSM licensing process. 4 licenses were issued, 2 local companies got licenses, the MTN came in. We became the largest market for MTN eventually, but they had to contend with many things.
The issue of infrastructure is a major one for the country because in capital expenditure, an investor can't just build their company. They have to build roads and provide their own electricity and water. Isn't that a put-off for an investor who's looking to make quick returns?
It may be a put-off when you write a business plan, but what you always find is that the size of your market is much larger than you envisaged it to be. There's never been one company I've spoken to who's made an investment here who says we don't have to increase capacity, right? And at the end of the day, the question of regarding poor infrastructure is not a stagnant. In Nigeria, as you will bear witness, every day there's improvements in infrastructure. The state governments are building out a number of roads. Some states are building large-scale railway systems. Some states are building monorail systems. There's housing infrastructure. The power privatization just occurred. I mean, where in the world do you see a country that decides that, okay, enough is enough. We are selling all the distribution assets, and the deal was done. 11 distribution companies were sold for the whole country, and we're selling all our power generation. It's all in the hands of the private sector.
You're one of the largest indigenous players in the oil and gas space. What do you think the future of oil is in Nigeria?
Oil will always maintain a very, very good, a good measure of stability. First and foremost for the currency. We're an importing nation. As we build out our infrastructure and start to manufacture, we're heavily reliant on imports. The oil sector helps us, We have a tremendous amount of reserves which would help us drive the industrialization of the country. So for example, the gas reserves in the country, we only require something like 10% of those reserves. But imagine the amount of cheap gas supply this country will have once the infrastructure is done. So we're heavily involved in building out that infrastructure. And what's the infrastructure required? It's just pipelines. The majors have always invested in export-oriented projects. The National Oil Company planned to build a lot of the internal infrastructure, but there's always a question regarding every single day regarding what do we invest in? Oil assets, oil distribution assets, for example, or schools and hospitals. So you require the private sector to partner.
Corruption is a pervasive problem in Nigeria, and it's in the oil and gas space where it seems to rear its ugly head. Recently, there were reports about how the National Oil Company has lost $20 billion in sales and royalties. How bad is the problem, and what's being done to solve this issue of corruption?
It's not fundamentally a corrupt environment we operate in. People will take advantage, yes, when there's opportunity. But with increased transparency, it's very hard to take advantage of the system to extract economic rent where you shouldn't be. The issue to do with the National Oil Company, I don't believe 20 billion is lost. I think the issue really is there hasn't been enough transparency in their financials for the whole world to realize what is going on. But unfortunately, the company has been forced to act as a company a corporation that provides subsidies to the general population. And in the process of doing that, okay, you can't really account for what you're spending because the cost of those subsidies, it's not just the immediate cost as in today, but it basically means lack of capital to invest in future infrastructure. It means deterioration of assets. And in the end, you're faced with a massive financial shortfall, which is very hard to simply do a snapshot test and say X amount is missing. So if the corporation has been made to subsidize kerosene imports for years, for example, made to subsidize petroleum imports before the petroleum regulatory authorities started officially doing, then it's a bit of a challenge. So it's not a simple situation as saying 20 billion is missing. I mean, there are shortfalls, and I think that if enough time is spent providing the audits and also exposing the audits, I don't think they should hide away. If we all know what the cost of subsidies are, it's easier for us to tackle them, as opposed to parking all the subsidies in one place and saying that place is not profitable or